All right, so top of page 4, so you've knocked out addition, subtraction, multiplication. Clearly our next option is division. All right, so for these guys, they're a little bit different because division's a little bit different. Okay, so we're going to take our h of x function, which is x squared minus 4x, and we're going to divide it by our g of x function, which is 3x. These have a little bit more steps involved because it's more of checking to see if you can simplify. Okay, so if every single term has something in common, we can simplify that value out. And in this case, they all have an x. Okay, so we can divide each piece by an x, which would bring this down to a single x, bring that down to a minus 4 over 3. That's nice and simplified there. What's actually happening, if you want to see it, is we're factoring out an x, leaving an x minus 4. Right? Because if I distributed this, I'd get this back over my 3x. And then these guys are canceling. That's what's actually going on. So I'm undoing multiplication with division. Okay? But you can just check all terms. I think we've been doing that, and you guys have seemed to like it, and it seems to be making sense. Okay? In this case, I do not have any variables in my denominator here, so I have no restriction. Right? Whenever we start dividing, we end up with some issues, and this is part of your answer, so please be careful. All right, so let's look at this second guy, because this one is going to end up with a restriction for us. So my h of x is x cubed minus 2x, and my g of x is x minus 1. So I'm looking at all 4 parts to see if they have anything in common, and they do not, since this one does not have an x. So this cannot be simplified any further. This is your answer. That's it. Okay? But I do have a restriction here because you are not allowed to divide by 0. And since I have a variable here, I need to figure out what value I would substitute this variable in to cause x minus 1 to equal 0. And we've done this when we look at domain, right? So we're saying what values here cannot equal 0. So I'm going to pull that out separately. X minus 1 cannot equal 0. And you're just going to solve it. Good old normal solve it. And if you can do this part in your head, that is super awesome. If you need to write it down to make sure that you're getting your signs correct, please make sure you do so. So part of your answer here is going to be x cannot equal 1. Okay? And you will not include this little cannot equal 0 in your final answer. That's just me showing you what's going on. Okay? So that's part of your answer, and that's part of your answer. Same deal as before. If you're just needing to evaluate and putting in a number, you don't need to tell me the restriction. And if you are putting an expression in here, you're going to put the expression in first and then simplify and see if there is a restriction.